The morning of my wedding felt like stepping into a dream. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the chapel, casting golden hues over the white petals that lined the aisle. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the delicate lace on my gown, but it was a tremble of excitement, of anticipation, of joy. After years of planning, after months of late nights arguing over flower arrangements and color palettes, it was finally here, the day I was supposed to marry the love of my life. My parents were bustling around me, fussing over small details, their smiles warm, almost radiant, or at least, that's what I wanted to believe. My father straightened the collar of my dress while my mother dabbed at a smudge on my cheek. "You look perfect," my mother said, and for a moment, I believed it. I wanted to believe it. Then there was my sister, Lily. She was standing a little too close to the veil, twirling a silver hairpin in her fingers. Her smile was bright, but there was something in her eyes that made me pause, a flicker of something I couldn't place. She had always been the favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, but today, something felt off. I shook the thought away, telling myself it was just wedding nerves. The chapel was filling with guests, the hum of whispered congratulations and camera shutters creating a soundtrack of celebration. My fiancé, Alex, waited at the altar with his usual calm smile, holding my gaze across the aisle. His eyes were full of love, admiration, and a quiet excitement that made my heart flutter. This was it, I thought. This was the beginning of forever. As I stepped onto the aisle, every smile and nod from family and friends felt like a reinforcement of the life I was about to enter. But I couldn't ignore the small, subtle oddities, the way Lily kept glancing at my parents, the way their hands seemed to brush against each other when no one was looking, the slight pause my mother took when she handed me the bouquet. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to breathe deeply. It was my wedding day. Nothing could ruin it. The music swelled and I reached the altar. Alex took my hands in his warmth grounding me, and for a moment everything felt perfect. The officiant began the ceremony, and I found myself speaking words I had rehearsed 100 times, feeling them resonate with truth in my heart. But then there was a small hesitation, a subtle misstep that seemed almost imperceptible. My father cleared his throat and smiled at me, but there was a tension there I hadn't noticed before. My mother's hand brushed mine, but her grip lingered a fraction too long, as if she were holding onto something unsaid. Lily's eyes sparkled with mischief, or was it malice? My mind spun, trying to reconcile these fleeting impressions with the happiness I felt. Surely, I was imagining things, surely nothing could mar this day, yet deep down, a sliver of unease had lodged itself in my chest. The feeling was faint, but it pulsed with each heartbeat, a warning I couldn't yet name. And though I tried to push it away, to focus on the love and promise before me, a tiny, nagging thought whispered that maybe, just maybe, today was not going to be exactly as I imagined. As I looked around the chapel one last time before exchanging vows, I forced a smile and whispered to myself, "This is my day." Nothing can ruin it, but in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the sensation that the story I thought I was living wasn't entirely mine. And as I reached for Alex's hands, ready to pledge my heart, I had no idea that the most profound betrayal of my life was waiting, silently, just a few steps away. The chapel was bathed in a golden glow, the sunlight reflecting off the polished wooden pews, glimmering on the white lace of my gown. I held Alex's hands tightly, trying to steady myself. His eyes were soft and unwavering, a beacon of love in a moment that should have been perfect. I took a deep breath and prepared to speak the vows I had spent weeks crafting, each word a reflection of my heart, my promises, my future. But when the officiant gestured for me to begin, something felt off. I frowned slightly as I unfolded the paper in my hands. It was my vow card, yes, but the words were wrong. The sentences I had written, the ones filled with love, hope, and devotion, were gone. In their place were lines I didn't recognize, twisting my feelings into something cruel and unfamiliar. My hands trembled as I read aloud. The words made it sound as though I were ceding my happiness, apologizing for my love, and most shockingly, acknowledging my sister in ways that made no sense. I glanced at my parents, My mother's hand was folded neatly in front of her, her lips pressed into a thin, unreadable line. My father's expression was carefully neutral, though there was a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. And then my gaze fell on Lily. She was smiling too perfectly, too knowingly. My stomach lurched. "Note this isn't right," I whispered, my voice quivering. I looked at Alex, hoping he would see the confusion in my eyes, hoping he would sense that something had gone horribly wrong. But he had already noticed. His brows knitted, a shadow of alarm crossing his usually calm face. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, his hand squeezing mine. I don't know," I admitted, swallowing the lump in my throat. My heart pounded as I tried to decipher what had happened. How could this be? I had rehearsed these vows for weeks. I had memorized every word, every pause, every heartfelt promise. And yet here I was, reading someone else's script, someone else's idea of what my life should be. As the words stumbled from my lips, I noticed the subtle cues around me. The photographer, who had been quietly moving between guests, paused mid-step, camera lens focusing intently on the small, almost imperceptible exchange. A flicker of recognition crossed his face. He had seen what I hadn't yet realized. Someone had orchestrated this. Someone I trusted. I felt my chest tighten. My parents' carefully composed expressions, Lily's triumphant smile. It all clicked into place. They had swapped the vows. At the last possible moment, my own family had rewritten my promises, turning my day of love into a stage for their own satisfaction. The betrayal stung worse than I could have imagined. I felt as though the floor had been ripped from beneath me, as though every cherished expectation had been shattered in an instant. Tears blurred my vision, but I held my ground. I couldn't let them see me break. Not here, not now. Alex's grip on my hands was the only thing anchoring me to sanity, and I drew in a shuddering breath, forcing my voice to remain steady. I finished the vows, though each word felt like a betrayal of myself. My heart ached, my soul trembled, and yet I forced a smile for the guests who were none the wiser, caught up in their applause and admiration. After the ceremony, when congratulations and hugs swirled around me like a whirlwind, I could barely hear the words of joy. My mind was focused elsewhere, on the photographer's sharp, knowing gaze, on the whispered words I had caught between my parents and Lily before the ceremony, on the weight of betrayal pressing down. Like a stone, I knew even then that this wasn't the end. This wasn't the conclusion of my story, no matter how much they thought they had rewritten it. Somewhere in that quiet knowledge, a spark ignited, a spark of anger, of sorrow, and of a promise I silently made to myself. This betrayal would not go unanswered. And I had proof. The lens had captured everything. The night after the wedding, the house was quiet, too quiet. My mind couldn't rest, even in the solitude of my bedroom. The laughter and applause from the ceremony still echoed in my ears, but it was hollow now, empty of the joy it should have carried. Instead, my heart replayed every small, subtle moment from the altar, the slight smirk of my sister, the way my parents exchanged secret glances, the way the words on my vow card had shifted from love to humiliation. I couldn't stop thinking about the photographer, James. He had been everywhere that day, moving silently among the guests, his camera capturing the moments we thought were private. A thought nagged at me. If anyone had seen the betrayal unfold, it was him. My pulse quickened as I dialed his number, my hands trembling. "James," I said when he answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to see the photos from the wedding, specifically the ceremony." There was a pause, then a quiet chuckle. "I think you'll want to see these," he said. "Meet me tomorrow morning." I hung up, my mind racing. The anticipation was almost unbearable. That night, sleep eluded me. Every scenario ran through my head, from disbelief to the crushing weight of confirmation. Finally, dawn arrived, and with it, the first glimpse of truth. James' studio smelled faintly of chemicals and old photographs. He led me to a small monitor, and there they were, the images that would change everything. The first picture caught my mother whispering to my sister, her hand brushing over the folded vow cards. The second showed my father passing a small envelope to Lily while pretending to adjust her hair. In the next, Lily was smirking at the camera, the vow card clearly switched. Each photo was more damning than the last. I could hardly breathe. I sank into a chair, gripping the edge as tears burned my eyes. How could they? How could my own parents and sister conspire to humiliate me on the most sacred day of my life? The betrayal cut deeper than any insult, any argument, any past grievance. I had loved them, trusted them, believed in their support, and they had used it as a weapon. James watched silently, understanding the magnitude of what he had captured. "You've got proof," he said softly. "And with this, you can decide how to respond. You don't have to be a victim." His words ignited a slow, smoldering fire inside me. The raw hurt was still there, thick and heavy, but now it was accompanied by clarity. I would not let them rewrite my story. I would not crumble in shame or silence. This betrayal would have consequences, and I would be the one to deliver them. I spent the day reviewing every image, every angle, every subtle gesture that revealed the conspiracy. Each photograph became a thread, weaving together the narrative of deceit. I could see the pattern of favoritism, the rehearsed timing, the careful orchestration. The more I looked, the more the rage within me solidified into determination. That evening, I sat alone in my room, drafting a plan. It wouldn't be hasty, it wouldn't be reckless, it would be precise, deliberate, and undeniable. I would expose the betrayal, yes, but I would do so in a way that left them no room for denial, no escape, no justification. The sweetness of the revenge would come not from anger, but from justice and poetic irony. And as I looked at my wedding gown hanging in the closet, now tainted with memory, I whispered a vow to myself, one that no one could alter. They will regret underestimating me. Every deceit will have its reckoning, and I will rise from this heartbreak stronger than ever. The first step of revenge was clear: patience. Observation, preparation. I would not act immediately, but I would act flawlessly. And in the quiet of that night, as the world slept unaware of the betrayal that had taken place, I allowed myself a small, bitter smile. The day of reckoning would come, and it would be unforgettable. The day I chose to act, the air felt heavier than usual, as though the universe itself was holding its breath. I had rehearsed this moment countless times in my mind, every word, every gesture, every carefully planned reveal. It wasn't about anger. It was about justice, about reclaiming the dignity that had been stolen from me on my wedding day. And with James' photographs safely in my possession, I was armed with irrefutable proof. The family gathering was innocuous enough. A post-wedding brunch that my parents had insisted on hosting, convinced the scandal of the vow swap had gone unnoticed by anyone but me. They smiled, unaware, as I arrived, calm and composed. Lily beamed, basking in the illusion of triumph, while my parents exchanged those same smug glances that had haunted me for weeks. I let them enjoy their false victory for a few moments longer. Patience was part of the plan. Timing was everything. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the warmth grounding me as I watched the scene unfold. Then, casually, I mentioned, "James gave me the photos from the wedding. Want to see them?" The shift was instantaneous. My parents froze, their smiles faltering. Lily's hand tightened around her glass. "Photos?" my mother asked, her voice tight. "Of course. We'd love to see them." I nodded, pulling out my phone and opening the gallery. One by one, I showed them the images, the whispering, the passing of the envelope, the subtle smirks that had betrayed their conspiracy. The room fell silent. The air felt electric, charged with tension, as each photograph told a story they could no longer deny. You did this," my father stammered, his voice cracking. My mother's lips pressed together, her hands trembling slightly. Lily's eyes widened, the carefully constructed mask of triumph slipping. I kept my tone calm, measured. "Yes, you changed my vows on my wedding day, in front of everyone I love, and you thought no one would notice, but I have proof." Lily opened her mouth, but no words came. My parents exchanged a desperate glance, realizing that the foundation of their deception had crumbled. The brunch table, once a scene of celebration, now felt like a courtroom. Every whispered excuse they might have offered dissolved into the weight of undeniable truth. I continued, my voice steady but laced with the quiet strength I had discovered over the past weeks. I trusted you, I believed in you, and this is how you treated me. Humiliated me, manipulated me, and thought it would be swept under the rug. The room was heavy with shame. I saw the realization in their eyes. They had underestimated me. They had assumed that I would crumble, that I would retreat into silence. But here I stood, stronger, empowered, and unbroken. Then I allowed myself the final flourish. I revealed that I had invited only those closest to me to the next family gathering, my aunt, my closest friends, Alex, and that they too had seen the photos. The knowledge that this betrayal was now publicly witnessed crushed the last illusion of control my sister and parents had clung to. Tears welled in my eyes, but they were not the tears of sorrow. They were the tears of vindication, of self-respect reclaimed. I forgive you, I said softly, letting the words hang in the air like a final judgment, but I will not forget, and I will not let this happen again. Lily looked stricken, and my parents bowed their heads, the weight of their guilt evident. The sweet justice was not in humiliation, it was in truth. In exposure, in reclaiming the narrative of my life that they had tried to steal. After the confrontation, I stepped outside into the sunlight, feeling the cool breeze on my face. Alex slipped his hand into mine, and for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to smile fully, freely. The betrayal had cut deep, yes, but it had also given me something unexpected. Strength, clarity, and the knowledge that I could rise above even the most intimate acts of treachery. As I looked back at the house, I realized that life had a way of balancing itself, of restoring dignity to those who refused to be broken. My wedding day had been stolen, yes, but my future, that was still mine to write, and I intended to write it beautifully. With Alex by my side and the truth shining like a beacon, I knew one thing for certain. The day of reckoning had come, the sweet taste of justice lingered on my lips, and the story of my life would never again be written by anyone but me.